God is a spirit, and his worshippers must worship him in spirit and in truth. God is a spirit, and his worshippers must worship him in spirit and in truth. I wanna be a true worshipper, true worshipper that worships God in spirit and in truth. I wanna be a true worshipper, true worshipper that worships God in spirit and in truth, spirit and in truth.
Hello and Wagwan family. I am Lisa May. Welcome to Becoming a True Worshipper, where we seek to learn how we can become who God wants us to be every day and in every way. Today, I'm so excited and happy to have this powerful guest, this powerful man of God, who is not only an apostle in Forward in Faith Ministries International, but is someone I consider a big brother. I consider him a big brother. And so I'm happy to have him with us today. We're going to have conversation. He's going to share his journey, and I think we have so much to learn from him. But allow me to just give you a brief profile of his life so far. He was born in Georgetown, South Carolina, USA, and graduated high school in 1983. After graduation, he enlisted in the United States Army, where he gave 28 years of dedicated service until retirement in 2011. He has served 2 tours in Iraq and 2 tours in Bosnia. He is currently married to Pastor Patience Williams, and Apostle David Williams has a heartfelt burden and is dedicated to minister to the prison and juvenile detention. And as such, he is presently attending chaplain school. He is passionate and mightily used in the areas of deliverance, spiritual warfare, and preaching the kingdom of God. He has also released a book entitled Fallen Soldiers, Finding God with a Broken Spirit. And this book is available on Amazon, Walmart, and Barnes and Noble. Today, help me welcome this wonderful servant of God, Apostle David Williams. Apostle David Williams. Welcome to Becoming a True Worshipper. Welcome, Apostle.
Amen, amen. Thank you, Pastor Lisa. Thank you so much.
It's so good to have you.
Yes, it is very, very wonderful to be able to be your guest on your podcast.
And thank you for accepting our invitation.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we want to just hear your journey. We heard that you attended high school, and after graduation, you enlisted in the United States Army. Tell us a bit about that experience, what that journey was like, being in the Army.
Well, I'll take you back from my childhood.
Okay.
Growing up in South Carolina in Georgetown, in the 60s, that's a time when I'm quite sure other places too, but in the South, racism was very, very bad. It was very lot of racism. And that's the era that I came up in, where Black and white kids, we rode the same school bus, but we didn't sit together on the bus. The black
Mhm.
kids were in one area, white kids in another area, on the school bus and everything. So, we pretty much grew up like that. I would tell you the family that I came up in, because in 1966, okay, I was born in 63. And I remember one day my mother and my grandmother, they left the house, and they were on the way to go and visit my uncle. My uncle, he was in a mental institution.
Mhm.
So my other uncle, his brother, was driving them and one of my cousins. And I remember when they left the house, and one of my uncles came back home, some time later, and he was crying. I'm a 3-year-old kid. I don't know what's going on. And all I remember him saying, he said, your mother and your grandmother won't be coming back. And what happened was, my uncle that was driving the car spun out of control and got hit by another vehicle. So my mother, my grandmother, they were instantly killed. They died right on the spot, on the scene. They were gone. So, we're at the house, and I got 2 sisters and 1 brother. It was 4 of us at the house. And I remember, when people came from the first day when my mother those died, they started the wake that night.
Mhm.
And I remember hearing people talk, and they said, well, hey, I can take the 2 little girls, but I can't take the boys. You hear somebody say, hey, well, I'll take the older boy. And, another family will say, oh, well, I'll take the baby boy. That's me.
Mhm.
So these people, they were like, nobody was willing to take all of us together. So I remember one of my cousins, she raised us. Her name was Elizabeth. And she said, well, I'll take all of the children. So we ended up, I remember that night, we left home, went down the street to her house. So, when we went down to her house, it was a different life, because I remember living in a house with 6 of us, with my grandmother, my mother, and me and my brother and my 2 sisters. So, it's our little 6 people family. Well, we went from 6 to 17. So we ended up moving in the house. The lady that raised us, she had other kids that she had adopted. She had other family members, cousins, and everybody else that was living at the house. And that's what we walked into.
Mhm.
And just to make matters even a little worse, was the fact that we ended up living in the same house with my uncle that was driving the car that my mom and my grandmother died. So it was a lot of resentment. It was so much resentment growing up. It was a lot of brutality, a lot of beatings. It was just, very, very harsh treatment. We
Mhm.
treated very harshly, and in all situations. I mean, it seemed like you couldn't breathe. It seemed like if you move and you move the wrong way, you were getting a whooping for something.
Mhm.
So I remember it came to a point that I said, you know what, I'm tired of getting beating. So what I used to do, I used to stay outside of the house late in the evening, because my uncle, he would go to work, and then he'd come home, just before dark. And when I seen him, the car turning in the driveway, I would run behind the house. I'd crawl under the house and stay under the house until he'd go inside, because it seemed like if they just saw you, you got a whooping for just being there. So I developed a sense of fear. I was very fearful of my uncle. My brother, he adopted that same mentality that my uncle had. So my brother started beating me and started abusing me and everything too. So I'm like, I couldn't deal with it. I remember one day, he took me out in the yard, and he said, hey, I want to play a game with you. So he took a rope, he tied my hands behind my back, and he got a bucket, and he made a hangman's noose in a tree and put the noose around my neck. And he was getting ready to kick the bucket from under me. So he actually was going to kill me that day. And the lady that raised me, she saw him and she started screaming. She ran outside. he ran away. She took me down. And from that time, he just developed such hatred towards me. Every opportunity that he had, he was extremely abusive. He was very abusive. And then finally he moved out of the house and he went down the street and lived with another family. They were our cousins and they had a bunch of boys in the house. So he moved in with them. So he's never shown love to me as a brother, never told me he loved me, never told me he cared for me. He just developed a hatred towards me. So, so then I grew up, not having a brother, not having a father, not having a male figure in my life. One of my adopted brother, his name was James, and we were very close. Me and him, we were close. And then finally, when he got a little older, then he moved on and, went to trade school and started doing whatever he was doing, with his life. So, and I was very sad. I was very lonely from that point because that was the only person I had that loved me. Nobody else ever told me that they loved me, they cared for me. None of that ever came about. So then finally, when he moved out, he went on with his life. I was in middle school, elementary school, actually. I was in elementary school and I was about 13 years old. And I remember one day, one of my cousins, he came and he said, hey, man, check this out. So I saw them, smoking. I'm thinking it's a cigarette. I don't know what it is. So what they did, they had a joint. They were smoking marijuana. So it was like, hey, try this. They told me how to smoke it and inhale the smoke. So I started smoking marijuana and I started liking the feeling that it was doing to me and stuff. So I, started smoking marijuana and going through elementary school, going up to high school. Nobody knew I was getting high. I mean, I was very, very good at hiding things. So then one of my other cousins, I was around 18, and one day he had a whole bunch of marijuana, and then he had this white powder, looking like flour. I don't know what it is. So he took the cigarette and he took the tobacco out, and then he took the cocaine and the marijuana, and he mixed it together and put it in the cigarette and started smoking. Say, hey, you want some of this? So I started smoking marijuana and cocaine together. But nobody in the house knew what I was doing. I was very secretive about the things that I was doing. I was just going out, just getting high, drinking alcohol, drinking liquor, coming in, sneaking back in the house at night, climbing through the window, and then I remember one day when my uncle that was very abusive, they had moved out. And the lady that raised me, one day, I came home one night and she said, you know what? I'm going to get Joe to straighten you out. So I told her, I said, look, that was the first time I ever stood up to her because, I was about 17. I was fed up by that time. I said, you know what? Another adult would never hit me another day of their life. That's the last beating I'm going to get from anybody. So what happened, my brother had a gun and he had given the gun to me because the gun didn't work. It was broken. So what I did, I took the gun and I took it to a gun shop and I had it fixed, but nobody knew I had got the gun fixed. And then I went and I bought a box of bullets and I'd go out in the woods and I'd be shooting in the woods and just practicing, how to shoot, how to aim. I just spend hours in the woods, just shooting all the time. So this particular night I came home and she said, I'm going to call Joe and he's going to come and he's going to whoop you. And I told her, I said, okay, I'll tell you what. I said, you might call him to come and whoop me. But after he whooped me, I said, you make sure you dial 911 because he's going to be dead. She panicked. And she looked at me because I've never talked to her like that before. She said, what did you say? I said, I told you. I said, he might beat me. I'm not going to deny that. But I guarantee you he'll be dead. Because, I had already planned in my mind. I had already made up in my heart that, that this is the last time that this man's ever going to put his hands on me. So I had already plotted, I had already planned. I said, you know what? I'm going to take the whooping and going to let him beat me. And while he's walking out of the house, I'm going to put the gun at the back of his head and blow his brains out. So this is what I had already thought out, what I was going to do, how I was going to do it. Well, she panicked. She didn't call him. And that was the last day that I ever got a beating from him. So then I was with my girlfriend, Pastor Lauren's mom. And we were in a relationship for about 5.5, almost 6 years, something like that. And then for whatever reason, she decided that she was going to cheat. She went and messed around with one of my cousins. And then after that, our relationship, went bad for a while. But, being young and in love, still being able to be hurt, but still have a forgiving heart. So we stayed in a relationship for a while. And then I moved to Washington, D.C. So when I got to Maryland, got to D.C., my sister, she came home and she said, look, she said, I'm taking you out of here because your life is not going anywhere. Nothing is happening with me. I'm getting up every day. I'm going to work. When I get through working, all I did was smoke weed all day, after I get through working, because I know I couldn't be getting high at work, but I stayed home. I smoked marijuana, I drank alcohol, and and just every bad thing every bad thought that could come in my head. That's pretty much what I did. And then, when I was hanging out with my cousin, I started seeing all the money. And I was like, wow, you know what? I want to have money in my pocket. So then my cousin gave me some marijuana, and I decided that this Friday night, I said, you know what? I'm going to go out tonight. And when I go out tonight, if I have success, then I'm going to become a drug dealer. This is what I had made up in my mind. Well, me having this thought in my head, something was there, and it didn't give me peace. And I was at home. I'm getting ready to go out. Already got the weed bagged up and everything. I said, yeah, I'm going to go out to the club, hang out on the corners like the other boys do, and sell marijuana. So every time I tried to leave the house, I couldn't get out of the house. Something would not let me leave that house. And, today we know what it is. But then it was just a feeling. It's like, you know what? Don't go out. Something just telling me, don't go out. I was like, come on, man, I want to go out. I want to get high. I want to hang out at the club. I want to go and sell some weed. I want to make some money, and this particular night I stayed home. And when I went out the next day, I was talking with some friends of mine, and they said, man, did you hear what happened last night? I said, nah. I said, man, the cops, they did an undercover sting at the club. Man, they took down all of the drug dealers. They took them all down, all the sellers, everything. They just came, they swept, and they got everybody. Or I would have been one of those bodies. But God kept me. And I in my mind, I was saying, wow, I was lucky, but it wasn't luck. It was God. It was God that kept me from making that mistake. Because I believe that if I had went down that road, it would have been a road of no return, because now I would have felt like, now I know what it's like to get locked up. So now I'm the man. I'm a man now. I've been to jail. I've been to jail, so I'm a man now. I can go out and do whatever I want. But then God kept me away from that. And I never went back out, and try to sell drugs and everything. But I was still smoking marijuana, still getting high, still drinking and just doing all sorts of stuff. And then when I got to Maryland, my sister took me there, and she would go to work. Well, when she went to work, we had a friend. I met this guy. His name was Chuck, and I'm spending time with him. Me and him were spending time together. So now I'm learning different ways to get high. because I've never heard of a bong, where you put the marijuana in it, you put ice cubes in it, you pour liquor, and then what you do, you suck in the smoke from the marijuana, but the fumes from the liquor and everything is going into your system. So it enhances you getting high. So I started doing that for a while. So then one day I'm sitting in the house and something just out of nowhere said, get up and leave the house. So I left the house. And just lo and behold, it had to be God. And something just said, go to the recruiting station for the military. Now here it is. I just smoked a whole bunch of weed 2 days before. But I go to the recruiting station. I walk inside. Told them guys, say, hey, I want to join the U.S. Army. And they said, you want to join the Army? I said, yeah. So, they got the paperwork. Okay, you got to do this test. I did this, what they call the ASVAB test. So I did the ASVAB test. When I got through doing the test, the guy, he scored my test, and he said, hey, you didn't score high enough to get in because all the areas of the test, you can't score below a certain score. Well, I had like an 84 or something like that. And I walked out of the recruiting station. I remember one of the guys, his name was Sergeant Williams, same as mine. And when I walked out and I left, and when I left, I said, okay, it was around Thanksgiving. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to, go back to South Carolina. I'm going back home and, just go visit home. And then, I'm going to go visit and then I'm going to come back. Well, when I went home, the lady that raised me that day, when I got to the house, she looked at me with a mean face, and she said, what did you do? I said, what are you talking about? And she said, what did you do? I said, what are you talking about? She said, some guy named Sergeant Maynard and Sergeant Williams, they called here for you, and they said, you need to be back in Washington, D.C. in 2 days. They said, you're shipping out in 2 days. And I was like, whoa. I went in the house. I fell down on my knees. I laid in the floor. I cried. I bawled. I said, oh my God. I said, oh God, I'm just thanking God. I said, God, I thank you. I thank you for this opportunity. And that's how I got in the military. Wow. So when I got in the military, I went back to Washington, D.C. They shipped me out to California, and that was my first duty station. When I got out there, I was still a knucklehead, because number one, I didn't have that father figure. So it was me figuring out life and doing what I want to do. So this one particular night, I'm coming from the club, with some guys walking down the street. And like I told you, where I came from in the South, it was all a whole bunch of racism going on. So I'm driving my car down the street this particular night. I'm on the base, and it was about 7 or 8 white guys, and it was about 2 or 3 black guys. It was about 10 of them together. So they were walking in the middle of the street. I'm driving my car. I said, hey, yeah, so y'all guys mind letting me through? So they started, yelling racial slurs and stuff at me. So I drive up to the parking lot. Well, I had a shotgun in the back of my car. So what I did, I go in the parking lot. I got the shotgun in the trunk. I said, hey, I yelled to them, meet me up the street. So they came, running down the street. I took the shotgun out of the trunk, pumped the shotgun like I was gonna shoot at them. And they all took off and they ran and they scattered. And when I thought about it, I said, you know what? That's one of the dumbest things that you could have ever done in your life. Because what would have happened if the military police had showed up and they caught you with that gun? My career, everything would have been over. Everything for me, for my life in the military, everything would have been finished. I would have threw away my whole career. But then just coming from there, fast forwarding, I went to Korea. And when I went to Korea, still a single soldier, drinking every single day. Drinking alcohol 7 days a week. I drink. When I get off work, I'm drinking alcohol. But it never affected me to the point that I couldn't do my job. Because my dad, the excuse I used to use is that, you know what? My father was an alcoholic, so that's why I'm an alcoholic. That's what I used to always do, revert, the negative things. If something negative came, I said, okay, you know what? I do this because my father did it. So that's the excuse that I will always use, that excuse for everything. Everything. I'm like, my dad did it, so that's why I did it. But this particular time, I go, and I remember it was on a Sunday, and I went to church. And when I went to church, I saw it was about 6 guys. They were all dressed in black suits, and they had on a black tie with a white shirt, and they had these gloves on, and they had white gloves, and they had on a white apron, and they had these signs and symbols, and they had these little hats on their head. And I'm like, okay, who are these guys? And I said, they must be good because they're in the church. This is what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So after church, I met them, and come to find out, lo and behold, didn't know anything about the Freemasons, but they were Freemasons.
Mm-hmm.
So
what is that?
Freemasons is a fraternity. It's a fraternity. It's an organization. The biggest side of the organization is called Illuminati. They have the Illuminati, they have the Freemasons, but when you take all these things and you wrap them all together, this is all of this nonsense that comes out of Hollywood. It was established in England. It's a very secretive organization. They have their own Bible. It's called the Masonic Bible. They take their beliefs and their rituals and they mix it with the Word of God. So they actually have their own Bible. It's a Bible that's actually made up, that have all their rituals and different houses and different stages through the process that you have to go through to become a Freemason. Well, I stayed in it long enough that I became they call it a 32nd degree Mason.
So they recruited you that evening when you met them?
No, let me tell you, that evening when I met them, what I was told, they said, you're not ready yet.
Okay.
They said, whenever you're ready, whenever we're ready, we'll let you know. This is what they told me in Korea. So fast forward 2 years later, I'm in Germany. I met this guy. We used to go to work out together. He's a very close friend of mine. One day he came and he said, hey, I want to talk to you about something. Now, we've been friends for like 2 years. I didn't know that this guy was a part of this organization. And he said, I want to talk to you about something. He said, have you ever heard of the Freemasons?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I know a little bit about it. He said, well, I'm one of them. And he said, we've been friends for quite some time. I want you to join our organization. And I said, okay, I'm a single guy. I'm in the barracks. I'm living my life, doing my own thing. And then all of a sudden, 5 guys came to my room one evening, and they all dressed in black suits. They got their briefcase and they got an application, and they sat down and talked to me about it. And I filled out the application. And then you sign like a waiver saying that, if anything happened to you, whatever, they're not held responsible, and, these different things, because whenever you're getting initiated into this organization, you go through some pretty hard stuff, pretty brutal. I'm talking really, really, really hard stuff.
Are you able to share any of those things?
It was so crazy because what they do, they have a group of men. They get together. It may be 20, 30, 40 of them. They take you like on weekends. They'll take you for a weekend when you're going through the different degrees. They'll take you to different secret locations that they have. They'll take you to these locations. They beat you. I mean, you get beat like really, really whooped, like really beat by men with big wooden paddles and leather and all sorts of things. And then they take you through all these different rituals while you're going through the process. They may get you 1 weekend, they'll say, okay, next weekend you need to be ready to go at 1 a.m. All of a sudden, 1 o'clock in the morning, you got these guys coming to pick you up. You and the other guys that's going through the initiation. You don't even know where you're going. They take you, they blindfold you, they take you to locations, and all of a sudden you end up in a dark place. You end up out in the woods or wherever they want to take you to. And then they take you through their rituals for days. Sometimes you're out there, 2-3 days out in the woods over the weekend, and nobody knows where you're at. So, you go through these initiations, and while you're going through, well, they have these books that it's called rituals. So they have these little books, and in these books, they have rituals in these books, and you're reading and you're reciting these different rituals. Well, the thing about it that you don't understand is that while you're into these rituals and you're reciting these ritualistic things from these books, you're speaking to these demonic spirits. So these demonic spirits, you not knowing, okay, but these demonic spirits are being transferred from those ritualistic teachings and things that they have in those books. Those demons are being transferred from there into you. But you don't know this, because the picture that we used to paint for a young man is that, okay, you becoming a part of this organization, then you're entering into manhood. This is what we made them believe. We talk about King Solomon's temple and different things in the Bible. So this is the false belief that we were putting those false beliefs and those false thoughts into those young man heads the same way, it was engrafted into me. So after I had been in this thing for about 18 years, I was in it for 18 years. And then what happened after that, they said, okay, look, we want to vote somebody in to be the next person to run the lodge. Well, I was that next person that was voted in for the next 2-3 years. So what would happen, me being the person that ran the lodge, they called me Worshipful Master.
Say that again. They call you
Worshipful Master.
Worshipful Master.
That was my title, being running the lodge. So I would have a gavel like a judge. The gavel. I have a gavel. I had a big black top hat that I would sit on, and sitting up on this high podium, overlooking everybody on the floor and running the meetings and stuff like that. And I did that for a few years. Well, there was an opportunity that once you become a 32nd degree Mason, then the highest you can go is a 33rd.
Wow.
But a 33rd degree Mason is once you become a 33rd, that's the highest you can go. There is no higher level than that. But the funny thing is that every time when it was time for me to get initiated as a 33rd degree, something would happen and it would never happen. It was never, the process was never able to be completed. And that's when now I know that it was God that kept me from going there, because the devil had actually had plans on trapping me there. And once he trapped me there, the Lord let me know that the devil had plans on killing me. That he was going to kill me. I was going to die. I was going to die in Freemasonry, and my soul was going straight to hell. Because one night I was on the military base, and I left home. I was getting ready to go to Iraq, and this was my second marriage. And my son, I remember he was 6 years old.
Wait, back up a bit. You got married while you were in the Freemason?
Yeah, let me back up. The first marriage, I was already in Freemasonry. Then I got married after.
So did she know that you were in
She,
Freemason?
initially, she didn't know. She knew nothing about it because we were very secretive.
Mhm.
We were very secretive about the things that we did. We would go on the weekends. We would go have wild parties with women, go on boat rides, drinking, everything that you could think. It went on those parties on the boats. You know, it was like total disrespect, no respect for women at all. They were just as wild as the men were. So, you know, so I would get dressed up, tell my wife, say, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you later tonight. Well, all she see is that I put on my black suit, put on my black overcoat because I was in Germany, and I would take off and I'm gone for the weekend.
So
She
did you meet your wife in Germany?
Yes, she was
Okay.
she was from Spain. She was Spanish.
Mhm.
And she grew up in Germany. So I met her. We got married, in which you'll find out later that was a big mistake,
Mhm.
you know, because what happened was we got married, and we were married for 7.5 years. But 6 months into the marriage, she told me, she said, I made a mistake when I married you. I said, okay, well, why'd you marry me? And she said, well, I don't know, but she married me, but she was in love with somebody else. You know, she was in love with another soldier. I said, well, you shouldn't have even wasted my time. So then that marriage went bad from 6 months into the marriage,
Mhm.
all the way out for 7.5 years. We stayed married, and it was, I would tell you, if it was so bad that if I didn't come to love myself the way God taught me to love myself, I would have killed myself.
Mhm.
I probably would have killed her and then killed myself too, just to get over the misery. That's how bad it was.
Mhm.
That's how bad the first marriage was. And then, you know, so to kind of balance things out, that's when I was going out. You know, I was going out, I was partying. You know, we were always on boat rides, drinking, and,
Mhm.
you know, all this stuff was going on. And stayed in that for about 7.5 years. And then finally, we got divorced. After we got divorced, I was still in Germany, and I met David Jr.'s mom, my son, and we started dating. And when we started dating, I was already in Freemason, already going out, already doing my thing, you know. And then finally, one day I sat down and told her, I said, okay, I need to tell you some things about me that you don't know, because, you know, being a Freemason is a very secretive life. Because
Mhm.
all you know is you see me as a soldier every day. You see me in uniform. But
Mhm.
at night, I'm a Freemason. I'm doing other things on the weekends, doing other things during the weekdays. I didn't live a normal life in
So
order.
what is it apart from the rituals that you say that you had to read and recite? What is the life of a person that is in Freemason? If
The,
you yeah.
you know, you have pastors, elders, deacons. You have all these people that they are in Freemasonry, but the devil have them drawn into that life so much that they will never walk away from it.
You mean
They,
pastors in the Church of God?
listen, Pastor Lisa,
Uh-huh.
you have pastors,
Mhm.
bishops, overseers, elders, deacons, apostles. You got all these different people. You have different people that they are Freemasons. And what they have done, they have taken that vow, they have taken that oath of the devil. That's an oath from the devil. Okay. Right now, where I'm at, sitting here talking to you, if some of them was to see this video, they'd be like, oh man, they would hope so much that they could get to me, that they would even they would even die for the life of a Freemason. They would die for that life. Okay. But it's a dark life. That life is very dark because the things they teach you, they don't teach you the things of God. They are against the things of God. That's the devil's playhouse. Because what happens is every time when you got somebody that are in Freemason and they're going into these rituals, they're reciting these ritualistic things, all they're doing, they're calling up all these spirits, all these demonic spirits that have been operating within that organization all these years. All those spirits become a part of them. And that's what I went through. I went through that. Because when I was getting ready to leave to go to Iraq, I was with my second wife at that time. The night I was getting ready to leave, there was a young white guy. All of a sudden, it was dark, and it was people everywhere. And I'm standing there, and all of a sudden, there was a white gentleman. He was dressed in a black suit, on a black tie with a white shirt. He was standing right in front of me. And when I looked up, he took a black book and he put that book in my hand. And when I looked down at the cover of the book, and on the cover of the book, it said Masonic Funerals. And when I looked back up, the gentleman was gone. I couldn't tell you which direction he went in. He disappeared. It was like a ghost. He popped in front of me with the book, boom, and he disappeared. And I stood there and I looked at the book and I said, Masonic Funerals. Well, what I found out later, God let me know later, that was a sign from the devil. The devil had plans of killing me in Iraq. I was not supposed to come back a living body. I was not supposed to come back from Iraq alive. Because what happened, I came home. We had a 1 year and 2 month tour. And I was in Iraq for 8 months. All my soldiers, I made sure all of them got to go home, visit their family. They all came back. I was one of the last ones to leave. And I go home. And when I got there, I saw, I was at the airport about a couple of hours waiting. And my son's mother came, picked me up. And we drove to Anaheim, California. She dropped me and David Jr. off. And she said, I got a meeting that I have to go to, which I didn't believe in anyway. And what happened when she came, she dropped us off. So she came back, I think it was 1 or 2 days later. So we drove home and I was standing in my front yard. And she got in my face and she looked at me and she was crying, bawling. And she said, I want you to know I gave you to God. And I looked at her and I laughed. And I said, well, let's see what your God can do with me. That was my challenge. When I got back to Iraq, it was a few days later. I was gone back about a week. And I called home. I was talking to my son. And I said, hey, son. And we're talking. And my son mentions the name of a guy. And I said, who is that? And he said, that's mommy's friend. And I said, okay, mommy didn't have a friend by that name when I was at home. I never met a friend by that name. So the devil jumped in. I'm on the phone trying to talk to her, and all of a sudden, the demons attacked her. And she cussed me out. Slammed down the phone. The devil told me, said, I got a solution. So I go out and I'm walking down the street. And all of a sudden, these demons came. It was 1:30 in the morning. And the demons came and they started running circles around me. And they kept saying, kill yourself. Kill yourself. Kill yourself. Kill yourself. And the devil's in the middle, and the devil said, look, if you kill yourself, your son and your daughter, they split a $500,000 insurance policy. It said your life is no good. You lost your first wife. You lost your second wife. You lost your son. You lost your daughter. Said the best option for you, said kill yourself. So I'm standing there and I'm seconds away. My mind is completely gone, just discombobulated, just completely gone. And I'm just a body just standing there. And all of a sudden I reach for the gun when I grab the 9mm, seconds away from putting that gun to my head. A small voice said, Dad. And I froze. And I said, DJ. He said, Dad. And I said, where are you? And he said, I'm here, Dad. I said, you're where? He said, Dad, I'm here with you. And when my son, the angel that God sent, when he said, I love you, Dad, the demons left. The devil left. And I'm standing there in the middle of the streets, boo-hoo crying like a baby. And I'm walking back, I'm going back to my building. And the spirit of my son is walking with me. And I could feel his presence through the angels. He was there and took me back to my front door, to my office. And he left. I want people to really hear this, and especially men, okay? Because sometimes what happens is we have pride and we let our pride get the best of us, and not realizing that the devil set us up for our own destruction. And that's exactly what happened to me. The devil would set me up for my own destruction. Because I went back to my room the next day. I was walking at night and I'm walking around with dark shades on. I had lost like 50 pounds. I was like basically skin and bones almost. And a friend of mine, he said, the Lord said to tell you to read Psalms 91. And I looked at him and I said, I'm fine, man. He said, no, you're not. He said, the Lord said to tell you to read Psalms 91. I said, okay. Because he said, in a few days, you're going to go through some things. Well, the few days, I kind of reversed the story a little bit. What I was telling you about the suicide thing, that's what happened 3 days later, after the young man gave me this word. And a friend of mine, he told me, he said, the Lord said to tell you, and he was a preacher. He said, the Lord said to tell you to meditate on Romans 12, verse 1 and 2. He said, meditate on this verse. Well, and this is what I want men to hear, because I know for a fact that there are men out there that you're hiding. Okay. You got an addiction. That addiction is called pornography. That addiction is called masturbation. Because you have men that you know what, that the wives, they're at home and they think that everything is okay, but everything is not okay, because that ugly beast have risen his head in their household. And the wife doesn't know it. When the wife goes to work, he's in the porn. He's in the garage on his computer. He's got it on his cell phone. He's got it hidden on flash drives. You know, the devil has given him full access when the wife is not there. Why can I tell you these things? Because that was me. That was the life that I lived. 6, 7, 8 hours a day into porn. And I'm in Iraq and I'm in my room watching porn, laying in the bed. I go to sleep about 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I wake up. Pastor Lisa, my entire body, it felt like someone had took a 5-gallon can of gasoline and poured it inside my body and dropped a match inside of me. I was on fire. I was burning from the inside out. And I laid in the bed and I got so scared. I said, you know what? I said, God's going to kill me tonight. I said, tonight I'm going to die. And I said, you know what, Lord? If you take me, I said, it's okay. Just take care of my children. I said, because if I die tonight, you know what? I deserved it. Because you know what? When the opportunity was there, you know, when that woman said, hey, my husband's not home, come and spend the night with me, or come spend days at my house because, you know, my husband's on deployment. I didn't think about that man. When I was out, you know, doing my dirt, being an adulterer, I didn't think about anybody else. I only thought about myself. And I said, you know what, God? I said, if you take me tonight, I deserve every punishment that I get. I said, every punishment I get from you tonight, I deserve it. So if tonight is my last night to breathe the breath of life, I said, all I can ask you to do is to forgive me. And I laid there in that bed and I was burning. I was burning. I got up, I looked in the mirror, I looked at my skin, I looked at my body, and it was nothing there. But I was on fire. I could not get the, and this ain't heartburn. I'm talking feeling hellfire burning inside you. It was so hot. It was just, I mean, my flesh was just, felt like it was just going, but I was physically still there. And I couldn't do anything. And I laid there, I cried. I said, God, I said, you know what? Just go ahead and kill me. And then a small voice said, get on your knees. He said, get on your knees. It's time. And I rolled from the bed to the floor. And I said, Lord, I'm not leaving here until you come. And I stayed on my knees in that room. Seemed like it was for hours. I got in the Bible. My mind kicked in and said, hey, remember Romans 12, 1 and 2. Remember Psalms 91. I'm reading the scripture, and I got a picture of my ex-wife on the bed, my son's mother. And a small voice sternly said to me, get rid of the picture. Said it's not about her, it's about you. And I took the picture and I put it in the bottom drawer. And I stayed on my knees. And all of a sudden, the Spirit of God overtook my body and stretched me out on the bed. And it felt like my body was cut open. Like my body was cut in two and open, wide open. And I could feel like millions, thousands of little hands just going inside my body, just plucking my body apart. It was like it was separating the good from evil. It was just picking me apart, plucking my body apart. And I went through that Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night for 4 nights. God visited me at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I said, God, how am I going to tell anybody what you've done? Because they'll never believe me. I said, nobody's going to believe this. He said, but you believe.
Jesus.
So I come through, you know, those 3 nights, and I'm laying in the bed, and the Holy Spirit said, turn on your computer. And I'm, you know, not knowing completely the voice of God, but it scared me because I'm thinking, okay, this is something that's trying to trick me to go back to what I
Yeah,
used to do. And I said, and I said no. And the voice said very softly, he said, turn the computer on. I want to show you something. And I turned on the power button. And I had about, I'd probably say about 500-600 gigs of pornography on my computer. I had it on the desktop, had it in the C drive, had it backed up on the flash drive. And the voice told me, said, turn the computer on. When I turned it on, I went on the desktop, the folder was gone. And I curled up in the corner of the bed and I said, you know what? I said, God, I know you're going to kill me now. And he said, go in the C drive. And I went in the C drive. I opened the C drive. Every bit of pornography was gone. And I paused for a minute and I laid there and I curled up in the corner of the bed and I wept and I cried and I wept and I cried. And I said, God, forgive me. I said, forgive me of all my sins. And he said, put the flash drive in the computer. I plugged in the flash drive. Every bit of pornography was gone off the flash drive.
Jesus.
All of it supernaturally erased. I said, God, ain't nobody going to believe this. And he asked me, he said, what else do I have to do to prove to you that I'm God?
Jesus.
I said, God, I'm convinced. I said, you got me. And the next thing came after that, he said, would you go anywhere I tell you to go, and would you do anything I tell you to do? And I paused for a second. And I said, Lord, anywhere you tell me to go, I'll go, and anything you tell me to do, I'll do. And Pastor Lisa, I could tell you from August the 14th, I've been following God like that ever since.
August 14th, what year?
2008.
Oh.
Our family thought I was crazy. When I told them I was getting out of the military. When I told my, ex-wife, my son's mother, I'm leaving the military. She knew how much I love the military, how much I love military life. It said, it makes no sense. I said, yeah, you know what? It ain't going to make sense to nobody else, but it makes sense to me.
So in that time, Apostle, you are still a part of the Freemason. So how did you leave? How did that happen? How did you leave the Freemason? Now that you have given your life to Jesus Christ, how were you able to leave the Freemason?
I'm glad you asked me that.
worship Him in spirit and in truth. God is a spirit, and His worshippers must worship Him in spirit and in truth. I wanna be a true worshipper, true worshipper that worships God in spirit and in truth. I wanna be a true worshipper, true worshiper